Before we dive in, please remember that the information in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, and this presentation does not constitute financial, legal, or investment advice. Always consult with a licensed professional before making any investment decisions. Real estate investing involves risk and you could lose money. You've done it. I've done it. We've all done it. You're scrolling through Zillow late at night, a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of self-torture. You see a decent-looking house, nothing fancy, just a normal starter home in a normal neighborhood. And then you see the price. $500,000, $600,000, and your brain immediately does the math. The so-called standard 20% down payment. That's $100,000, $120,000, cash, just to get in the door. That's before closing costs, before inspections, before the moving truck. For most Americans, that number isn't a goal, it's a joke. It's more than the median annual household income in the entire country. It feels like a gate, slammed shut and locked with a sign that says, "Sorry, you're not welcome here." The American dream of property ownership feels like it's been reserved for the people who are already rich. But what if I told you that the 20% down payment is one of the biggest, most persistent, and most damaging lies in the entire real estate industry? What if I told you it's a myth? A piece of outdated conventional wisdom designed to keep you on the sidelines, paying someone else's mortgage forever? What if I told you that you, right now, with what you have in the bank, might be closer to buying your first property than you ever thought possible? That's what this is all about. This isn't just another video with vague tips. This is a playbook, a roadmap. We are going to systematically dismantle the myth that you need a mountain of cash to start investing in real estate. We are going to explore actionable, creative, and proven strategies that people are using every single day in this country to buy income-producing assets with little, and sometimes no money out of their own pocket. And I know what you're thinking. Easy for you to say, you probably started with a trust fund. Far from it. I started this journey with less than $3,000 to my name, a beat-up Honda Civic, and an almost crippling fear of failure. I was working a dead-end job, living paycheck to paycheck, and the idea of owning a single-family home felt as realistic as owning a private jet. But I was obsessed. I read every book, listened to every podcast, and talked to every investor who would give me the time of day. And I discovered a secret world. A world of creative financing and unconventional strategies that the big banks and traditional realtors don't tell you about. Because frankly, they don't make as much money from them. So, consider this your invitation into that world. Over the next several parts, we're going to break down everything. We'll cover strategies like seller financing, where the owner becomes your bank. We'll talk about partnerships and syndications, where you can leverage other people's capital. We'll even dive into the art of wholesaling, where you can make money from real estate without ever actually owning the property. But we're going to start with the single most powerful, accessible, and life-changing strategy for anyone with low capital. It's the one I started with, and it's the one that has created more first-time millionaires than perhaps any other. It's called house hacking. Now, don't let the trendy name fool you. The concept is as old as time. House hacking in its simplest form is buying a multi-unit property, a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, living in one of the units and renting out the others. That's it. The magic isn't in the concept. It's in the execution and the financing. Think about your single biggest monthly expense. For 99% of people, it's housing, your rent or your mortgage payment. It's a massive, relentless drain on your income. Every month, a huge chunk of your hard-earned money vanishes, gone forever to pay for your shelter. What if you could eliminate that expense? Not just reduce it, but completely wipe it out. What if, instead of you paying a landlord, your tenants paid you? Your housing expense would go from your biggest liability to your biggest asset. This is the core of house hacking. You buy a duplex for, let's say, $400,000. Your mortgage, taxes, and insurance come out to about $3,000 a month. But you live in one unit, and you rent the other unit out for $1,800 a month. Suddenly, your out-of-pocket housing cost is just $1,200. You're living for a fraction of what your friends are paying in rent for a tiny apartment. Now imagine it's a fourplex. You live in one unit and rent out the other three. It's very likely that the rent from those 3 units completely covers your entire mortgage payment, and then some. You are now living for free. In fact, the bank is paying you to live in your own home. Let that sink in. The money you were burning on rent can now be saved, invested, or used to buy your next property. This is how you build wealth at warp speed. Okay, you're saying, that sounds great. But we're back to the original problem. I don't have $80,000 for a 20% down payment on a $400,000 duplex. And this right here is the secret key that unlocks everything. Because you are going to live in the property, you are not considered a typical investor. You are considered an owner-occupant. And this status gives you access to the holy grail of low down payment financing, government-backed loans. The most famous of these is the FHA loan. An FHA loan, which is insured by the Federal Housing Administration, allows you to purchase a property with as little as 3.5% down. Let's run those numbers again. On that $400,000 duplex, a traditional investor needs to bring $80,000 to the table. You, the savvy house hacker using an FHA loan, need to bring just $14,000. $14,000. That is a real, attainable number. That's a tax refund and a few months of disciplined saving. That's a used car. You can literally buy your first appreciating, income-generating asset for the price of a 2010 Toyota Camry. There are also VA loans for veterans that require 0% down, and other programs that can help with closing costs. The barrier to entry just crumbled. Now the objections start flooding in. I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to fix toilets at 2 in the morning. What if my tenants are a nightmare and don't pay rent? These are all valid fears. They're the reason most people never do this. But let's be brutally honest. Is screening tenants, signing a lease, and calling a plumber once in a while more difficult than working a job you hate for the next 40 years because you're trapped by your bills? The reality is being a landlord is a skill, and like any skill it can be learned. You learn how to screen for great tenants. You use ironclad lease agreements. You build a list of reliable handymen and contractors. You treat it like a business, not a hobby. For the prize of financial independence, learning how to manage a few units is an incredibly small price to pay. House hacking is more than a financial strategy. It's a mindset shift. It's about seeing a duplex not as two separate apartments, but as a wealth-generating machine. It's about being willing to trade a little bit of privacy or convenience for a short period of time, maybe a year or two, in exchange for a lifetime of financial advantage. While your friends are complaining about their rent going up again, you'll be cashing their rent checks. While they're saving for a down payment, you'll be living for free and using your extra cash flow to save for your next property. You do this once, you live in the property for a year, and then you can move out and rent the unit you were in, and the entire property becomes a cash flowing machine. Then you do it again and again. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get-rich-for-sure plan. It's the first, most critical step on the path to building a real estate portfolio that can change your family's future forever. But let's be brutally honest for a second. That dream, that vision of a real estate empire, it hits a brick wall for 99% of people. And that wall has a name: the down payment. You hear the gurus online. Just save up 20%. For a $300,000 duplex, that's $60,000. For most Americans, that might as well be $60 million. It's a soul-crushing number that makes you want to just give up and go back to scrolling on your phone. You have the drive, the hunger, the willingness to work, but you don't have a rich uncle or a trust fund. And so the dream dies before it even begins. But what if I told you that the down payment is a myth? What if I told you it's a barrier designed by the big banks for the big banks to keep regular people like you and me out of the game? There's a back door. A strategy so powerful, so effective, that it allows you to bypass the banks entirely. It's called seller financing. And it's not some new age trick. It's one of the oldest, most fundamental ways deals have been done for centuries, long before giant financial institutions ran the world. Think about it from the seller's perspective for a moment. Let's imagine a couple, we'll call them John and Mary. They're in their late 60s. They bought a rental property 30 years ago for $50,000. Today it's worth $400,000. They're tired of dealing with tenants, toilets, and taxes. They just want to retire, sell the property, and use the money to travel and see their grandkids. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. If they sell that property for $400,000, they have a massive capital gains tax bill staring them in the face. Their $50,000 investment has grown by $350,000. The IRS is going to take a huge slice of that pie. Suddenly, their big payday gets a lot smaller. On top of that, they get a huge lump sum of cash that they now have to figure out what to do with. A savings account pays them practically nothing. The stock market feels like a casino. They've swapped one headache for another. This is where you come in. Not as a buyer with a briefcase full of cash, but as a problem solver. You find John and Mary's property. Maybe it's listed for sale by owner. Maybe it's been sitting on the market for months because it's a little dated and other buyers want something turnkey. You approach them, but you don't start by talking about price. You start by asking questions. What are your plans after you sell this wonderful property? Where are you heading next? You listen. You learn about their desire to retire, their frustration with being landlords, and their concerns about that massive tax bill. Then you present a different path. You say, John and Mary, I know I can't offer you all cash today, but what if, instead of you selling me the house, you became the bank? You sell me the property for your full asking price, $400,000. I'll give you a small down payment, say $10,000, to show you I'm serious. And then for the remaining $390,000, I'll pay you directly every single month. We'll agree on an interest rate. Let's say 6%. That's 10 times what your bank is offering you on a savings account. You'll get a check from me for principal and interest every month like clockwork. You get a steady, reliable stream of income without any of the landlord headaches. And because you're receiving the money in installments over many years, you defer that giant capital gains tax hit. You solve your problem, and I get a chance to start my real estate journey. You're not trying to lowball them. You're not trying to trick them. You are offering them a legitimate, powerful solution that is a win for them. They get their price. They get a higher return on their money than the bank could ever offer. They solve their tax problem. And they get to pass their legacy on to a young, ambitious person instead of a faceless corporation. And what do you get? You get the keys to your first investment property for $10,000 down, not $60,000. You just bypassed the entire banking system. You didn't have to deal with underwriters, loan applications, or credit committees. You made a deal with a human being based on solving their problem. This isn't a fantasy. Deals like this happen every single day in every single market in America. The key is finding the right sellers. You're not looking for the person who needs all their cash immediately to buy their next house. You're looking for the tired landlord, the retiree, the person who inherited a property they don't want. You find them by looking for clues: properties listed for sale by owner, rental listings that have been vacant for a while, houses with deferred maintenance. You can even search public records for properties owned free and clear by out-of-state owners. These are all potential signs of a motivated seller who might be open to a creative solution. When you have the conversation, you must frame it around their benefit. It's not about what you need, it's about what you can offer them. Security, a steady income stream, a tax solution, simplicity. Now, there are critical components to structure this correctly. You absolutely must use a real estate attorney to draft the paperwork, the promissory note, and the mortgage or deed of trust. This protects both you and the seller. You'll negotiate key terms: the purchase price, the down payment, the interest rate, and the amortization schedule, which determines your monthly payment. But the most important term is the balloon payment. A seller usually won't want to be your bank for 30 years. So you might agree to a deal where your payments are calculated as if it were a 30-year loan, keeping your monthly payment low, but the entire remaining balance is due in, say, 5 or 7 years. This is the balloon payment. And it's not scary, it's your timeline. It gives you a 5-year window to execute the BRRRR strategy we talked about. You get in, you force the appreciation by renovating the property, you increase the rents, and then you go to a traditional bank. But now, you're not going to them with your hat in your hand, begging for a loan on a shabby property. You're walking in with a proven cash-flowing asset. You show them the new appraisal for $500,000, you show them the rent rolls, and they will be lining up to give you a loan to pay off John and Mary. You refinance, pay off the seller, and pull out tax-free cash to go and do it all over again. This is the art of the deal. It's about seeing the human element behind the transaction. Real estate isn't just about bricks and mortar. It's about people's lives, their problems, and their dreams. When you can learn to solve those problems, you become unstoppable. You're no longer limited by the amount of cash in your bank account. You're limited only by your creativity and your willingness to find a way to create a win-win. This single strategy, seller financing, can be the key that unlocks your entire future in real estate. It's how you get your foot in the door when every bank has slammed it shut in your face. It's how you take control. But this raises a new critical question. You've just used every last penny you had for that small $10,000 down payment. The property needs work to force that appreciation, but your renovation budget is exactly zero. How do you fund the rehab? How do you pay for the new kitchen, the updated bathrooms, and the fresh paint that will skyrocket the property's value and rents? You're tapped out. This is another wall that stops most investors dead in their tracks. But just like with the down payment, there's a back door. There's a source of funding designed specifically for this situation, and almost nobody in the mainstream world knows it even exists. It's the secret fuel for the BRRR engine, and it's exactly what we're going to break down next. This secret funding source is known by a few names: private money, bridge lending, but its most common name is hard money. And I know the name sounds intimidating. It sounds like something out of a back alley deal, something loan sharks use. But I need you to erase that image from your mind, because in the world of professional real estate investing, hard money isn't scary. It's a precision tool. It's the key that unlocks deals a regular bank wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. To understand why it's so powerful, you first have to understand the fundamental difference in how a bank thinks versus how a hard money lender thinks. When you walk into a traditional bank for a mortgage, what's the first thing they do? They look at you. They pull your credit score, they scrutinize your last 2 years of tax returns, they want to see your W-2, your pay stubs, your debt-to-income ratio. They are underwriting you, the borrower. Their primary question is, can this person reliably make payments for the next 30 years? If the property you want to buy is distressed, if it has a leaky roof, a busted kitchen, or peeling paint, the bank gets even more nervous. They see it as a liability, not an opportunity. To them, a fixer-upper is just a broken house. A hard money lender operates from a completely different universe. When you bring a deal to them, they barely glance at your W-2. Your credit score is secondary. The most important thing to them, the only thing that truly matters, is the deal itself. They aren't underwriting you. They are underwriting the asset. Their primary question is this a good deal? If we lend on this property, and the borrower fails, can we take the property back and still make a profit? They are asset-based lenders. They see a distressed property not as a broken house, but as a pile of untapped equity waiting to be unlocked. And that single shift in perspective changes the entire game for someone starting with low capital. Let's make this real. Imagine you find a property. It's the classic ugly duckling on a great street. The purchase price is $100,000. You've done your homework, you've run the numbers, and you know that with about $40,000 in renovations, new kitchen, new bathrooms, paint and flooring, this house will be worth $200,000. This is what we call the after repair value, or ARV. So, your total cost to get in is $140,000, and the end value is $200,000. That's $60,000 in potential equity. It's a fantastic deal. You take this deal to a bank. The loan officer will smile politely, look at the photos of the dangling gutters and the 1970s shag carpet, and tell you, we can't lend on a property in this condition. Even if they could, they would require you to put down 20%, which is $20,000, and then you'd still need to come up with the $40,000 for the rehab out of your own pocket. You need $60,000 in cash. For most people, that's a non-starter. The dream dies right there at the loan officer's desk. Now let's rewind. Instead of going to the bank, you take this exact same deal to a hard money lender. You don't just show them the broken house. You show them the vision. You show them your detailed rehab budget for $40,000. You show them the comps, the comparable sales of recently renovated houses on the same street that sold for $200,000. The hard money lender looks at your numbers. They see a $100,000 purchase price, a $40,000 rehab budget, and a solid $200,000 ARV. They agree it's a great deal. So they might say, okay, we'll lend you 70% of the after repair value. 70% of $200,000 is $140,000. Think about what just happened. The hard money lender has just agreed to lend you the entire $100,000 purchase price and the entire $40,000 renovation budget. Your out-of-pocket expense just went from an impossible $60,000 down to maybe just the closing costs and some lender fees, which could be $5,000 to $10,000. Suddenly, the impossible deal is within reach. This is the secret. This is how investors control million-dollar portfolios while starting with less money than most people spend on a used car. They use other people's money, specifically hard money, to fund the purchase and construction, leveraging the quality of the deal itself. Now you're probably thinking, this sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? And you're right to be skeptical. There are two main catches to hard money, which, as you'll see, aren't really catches at all if you use them correctly. First, the cost. Hard money is not cheap. A traditional mortgage might have a 6 or 7% interest rate. A hard money loan might have a 12% interest rate. On top of that, they'll often charge points, which are upfront fees. 2 points on a $140,000 loan is $2,800. So yes, it's significantly more expensive. Second, the timeline. A hard money loan is not a 30-year mortgage. It's a short-term bridge loan. We're talking 6, 9, or maybe 12 months. They expect you to get in, get the work done, and get out fast. This is the point where most people get scared off. Higher rates? Short timelines? Sounds risky, but the professional investor understands that these aren't liabilities. They are strategic features. You have to stop thinking like a homeowner and start thinking like an investor. You are not living in this house for 30 years. You are using this money as a tool for a very short period of time to create value. Think of the cost not as an expense but as a partnership fee. You are paying the hard money lender a premium for speed and opportunity. They are enabling you to capture that $60,000 in equity that the bank would never let you touch. Would you pay $10,000 in interest and fees to make $60,000? You would do that deal every single day of the week. The cost is simply a line item in your budget, just like lumber and paint. And the short timeline? That's not a risk. It's a motivator. It forces discipline. It creates a sense of urgency that guarantees you won't let your project drag on for months and months. It lights a fire under you to get the renovation done, to execute your plan efficiently, and to move on to the next step of the BRRR strategy. And that is the key to it all. The hard money loan is the B, and the first R, the buy and the rehab. It's the bridge that gets you across the chasm. Once the work is done, you have a beautifully renovated property worth $200,000. Now you execute the third letter, R for rent. You place a high-quality tenant in the property. What do you have now? You no longer have a distressed, vacant asset. You have a stabilized, cash-flowing rental property appraised at $200,000. Now, you walk back into that same traditional bank that rejected you 6 months ago. But you're not asking for a loan on a broken house. You're asking to refinance a pristine, income-producing asset. The bank loves this. They'll gladly give you a new long-term low-interest 30-year mortgage. They'll typically lend you up to 75% of the new appraised value. 75% of $200,000 is $150,000. The bank cuts you a check for $150,000. The very first thing you do is pay back your hard money lender their $140,000 in full. You've now completely paid off your expensive short-term debt. And what are you left with? You have $10,000 of tax-free cash in your pocket. You have a cash-flowing rental property with a tenant paying down your new cheap mortgage. And you have $50,000 of equity in the property on day one. You've just manufactured a performing asset, pulled all of your capital back out, and did it starting with next to nothing. That is the power of the BRRR method, fueled by the engine of hard money. It's a complete system. But understanding the system is one thing. Actually finding and securing the fuel is another. This isn't like Googling best mortgage rates. Hard money lenders don't advertise on billboards during the Super Bowl. They operate in a different world. Finding them, vetting them, and pitching your deal to them in a way that makes them want to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars is a skill in and of itself. Get it wrong, and you'll be seen as an amateur. Get it right, and you unlock an infinite source of funding for your real estate empire. The question is, how exactly do you do that? You do it by fundamentally changing the way you see the transaction. You stop thinking like a desperate borrower begging for a loan, and you start acting like the CEO of an investment firm presenting a can't-miss opportunity. Because that's exactly what it is. Private lenders, whether it's your dentist, a colleague from a past job, or a sophisticated investor you met at a networking event, aren't philanthropists. They're investors. Their money is sitting in a savings account earning less than inflation, or it's in a volatile stock market they don't understand. You're not asking for a favor. You are offering them a solution. You are offering them a professionally managed, high-yield investment, secured by a tangible physical asset. Your job isn't to beg. Your job is to prove that you are the safest and most profitable manager for their capital. And the way you prove it isn't with a fancy suit or a slick sales pitch. You prove it with a bulletproof presentation. A document so thorough, so well-researched, and so professional that it answers every question before it's even asked. We call it a deal package, and it is the single most important tool in your capital-raising arsenal. Let's walk through building one step by step, because this is where amateurs are separated from future millionaires. Imagine you found a property. It's an ugly, dated, but structurally sound house in a great neighborhood. The seller wants $180,000. You know, after walking through it with a contractor, that it needs about $50,000 in renovations. And you've done your homework, you've analyzed the market, and you're confident that once it's fixed up, It will sell for $320,000. That's a $90,000 gross profit. An incredible deal. The only problem is you don't have the $230,000 needed to buy it and fix it up. This is where your deal package comes in. It's not a text message to a rich uncle saying, "Hey, can I borrow some money?" It's a 10 to 20-page prospectus, bound and delivered like the serious business proposal it is. First, you have the executive summary. This is page 1. It's the entire deal in a nutshell. The property address, the purchase price, the renovation budget, the projected after repair value, or ARV, and the proposed terms for the lender. For example, we are seeking a loan of $240,000 to acquire and renovate 123 Main Street. This loan will be secured by a first-position mortgage on the property. We are offering the lender a 10% annualized interest rate, paid in full upon the sale of the property, with an estimated project timeline of 6 months. In 30 seconds, the potential investor knows the what, the where, and the what's in it for me. Next, the deal analysis. This is where you show your math. You break down every single number. Purchase price, $180,000. Renovation budget, $50,000. But you don't stop there. You include carrying costs. What about insurance for 6 months? Taxes? Utilities? Loan interest payments? You budget for everything. Let's say that adds another $10,000. You also include buying and selling costs, agent commissions, closing costs, title fees, another $25,000. Now your total project cost is $265,000. Your projected sale price is $320,000. Your net profit is $55,000. Showing these detailed, often overlooked expenses demonstrates that you are a professional who understands the true costs of doing business. It builds massive trust. But how do you prove that $320,000 sale price? That's the next section. The comparable sales, or comps. You can't just pull a number out of thin air. You need to provide cold, hard data. You work with a real estate agent to pull a report of at least 3 to 5 properties that are similar in size, age, and style, in the same neighborhood, that have sold in the last 90 days. Critically, these comps must be properties that have been recently renovated, just like yours will be. You include pictures and descriptions of these sold properties right in your package. You're not saying, "I think it will be worth this much." You're saying the market has proven 3 times over in the last 3 months that this is the value of a renovated home on this street. You are replacing opinion with evidence. After the comps, you include the scope of work. This is not a one-line item that says, "Renovation $50,000." It is a detailed line item bid from your contractor. Kitchen remodel $15,000, broken down into cabinets, countertops, appliances, flooring, and labor. Master bathroom, $8,000. New roof, $9,000. Interior and exterior paint, $7,000. This document does 2 powerful things. First, it justifies your budget, showing the investor exactly where their money is going. Second, and more importantly, it proves you have a team. It shows you've already engaged a professional contractor who has seen the property and is ready to work. You're not a lone wolf trying to figure it out. You're a project manager with a team in place. Speaking of your team, the next section is the team page. You list your key players: your real estate agent, your contractor, your closing attorney or title company. You include a short bio for each. Even if you're just starting out, you can write a bio for yourself that highlights your drive, your research, your connections, and your commitment to making this project a success. Remember, they are investing in you as much as they are in the property. Show them you're a jockey worth betting on. Finally, and this is the masterstroke, you include your exit strategies. Plural. Strategy A is the plan. Renovate the house in 4 months, list it on the market in month 5, and sell it for $320,000 in month 6, paying back the lender and reaping your profit. But sophisticated investors always ask, what if? So you give them the answers. Strategy B. The market softens and the house doesn't sell quickly. The backup plan is to refinance the property with a traditional bank based on its new, higher value of $320,000. This new loan pays off the private lender in full, and you now own a cash-flowing rental property. Strategy C. A complete market downturn. You have a contingency to simply rent the property as is without refinancing, covering the mortgage and expenses, and wait for the market to recover before selling. By presenting multiple exit strategies, you are demonstrating that you have thought through the risks. You've planned for success, but you've also prepared for adversity. This single page can be the difference between a no and a yes. When you hand this complete package to a potential investor, the entire dynamic of the conversation changes. You're not asking for money anymore. You are presenting a joint venture. You're showing them a machine that you have designed to produce a specific result, and you are inviting them to provide the fuel. The professionalism, the detail, the foresight, it all communicates one thing: competence. It shows that you respect their capital enough to have done your homework, and that you are a safe pair of hands to entrust it to. This package becomes your key to unlocking private money, not just for one deal, but for every deal you ever want to do. But of course, crafting the perfect pitch is only half the battle. This entire strategy hinges on one critical element: having a phenomenal deal to put inside that package in the first place. A deal so good the numbers practically leap off the page. The problem is, deals like that don't show up on Zillow or the MLS. They're snapped up by insiders before they ever hit the public market. So how do you find them? How do you get access to the off-market world where the real money is made? There's a method, a specific technique for uncovering hidden gems that most investors will never learn. And it has nothing to do with driving around looking for ugly houses. It's a fundamental shift in thinking. You have to stop looking for houses and start looking for people. Specifically, people with problems that a house is attached to. The secret to off-market real estate isn't about finding properties. It's about finding motivation. You aren't a house hunter. You are a professional problem solver. Think about it. Why would anyone sell their house for less than its full market value? It's not because they're unintelligent. It's not because they're bad with money. It's because the house has become a source of pain, and they are willing to trade some of the equity in that house for a solution that brings them speed, convenience, and peace of mind. They aren't selling a house, they're selling a headache. And you are in the business of buying headaches. So where do you find these situations? The single most powerful, yet often overlooked, source of motivated sellers is probate. When someone passes away, their estate, including any real estate they owned, goes through a legal process called probate. The person in charge of handling the estate is called the executor, or the personal representative. Now I want you to put yourself in their shoes for a moment. Let's imagine your great-aunt Sally, who you loved dearly, just passed away. She lived 3 states away in a house she owned for 50 years. You've just been named the executor of her will. On top of grieving, you're now legally responsible for managing her assets. You fly out to her town and open the door to her house. It's a time capsule. The carpet is from the 70s, the kitchen has avocado green appliances, and every room is filled to the brim with a lifetime of possessions, memories, and just stuff. What are your options? You could hire an estate sale company to clear everything out. That takes weeks. You could hire a contractor to update the kitchen, rip out the old carpet, and paint the walls. That costs $20,000, maybe $30,000 you don't have, not to mention the time it takes to manage the project from 3 states away. Then you have to find a real estate agent, list the property, deal with showings, inspections, and hope that a buyer's financing doesn't fall through at the last minute. This entire process could take 6 to 9 months, all while you're still paying property taxes, insurance, and utilities on an empty house. Or, someone sends you a simple, respectful letter. The letter says, "I understand this may be a difficult time. I am a local buyer, and I'm interested in the property at 123 Main Street. I can buy it as is, you don't need to clean anything out or make any repairs. I pay with cash, so there are no banks to deal with, and I can close in as little as 2 weeks. If this would help you settle the estate more easily, please give me a call." Which option sounds more appealing? For many executors, it's the second one. They are not focused on squeezing every last penny out of the house. They are focused on fulfilling their duty, settling the estate, and getting back to their own lives. They will happily accept a fair cash offer that is maybe 70 or 80% of the home's retail value in exchange for a guaranteed, fast, and painless solution. That discount isn't a loss to them. It's the price they pay for convenience. This isn't a theory. This happens every single day in every county across America. So how do you find these people? The information is public record. You can literally walk into your county courthouse, go to the clerk's office, and ask to see the new probate filings. In those files, you'll find the name of the deceased person, the address of their property, and the name and contact information for the executor. It's all right there. Costs you nothing but your time. Or, if you want to scale, there are data services online that compile this information for you for a monthly fee. They pull the data from courthouses all over the country, and deliver it to you in a neat little spreadsheet. This is the first key to the kingdom. You are now accessing a list of property owners that no one else is talking to. The real estate agents aren't calling them yet. The big iBuyers aren't targeting them. You're getting to them first with a message tailored specifically to their problem. And probate is just one example. What about tired landlords? Think of a guy named Bob who bought a duplex in 1985. He's managed it himself for nearly 40 years. He's 68 years old now. He's tired of calls at 10 p.m. about a running toilet. He's tired of chasing down rent. One of his tenants just moved out and trashed the place, and he just doesn't have the energy or the money to fix it up again. Bob doesn't want to be a landlord anymore. He wants to retire. He wants to go fishing. He is a motivated seller. He will gladly sell his property at a discount to someone who can close quickly and take the problem off his hands. How do you find Bob? You can get lists of absentee owners, people who own a property but don't live in it. You can filter that list by how long they've owned the property. Someone who's owned a rental for 25 years is far more likely to be tired than someone who bought it 2 years ago. What about divorce? Divorce is another major source of motivation. Often, a house is a couple's largest asset, and the court orders them to sell it and split the proceeds. It's an emotionally charged situation. They don't want to cooperate on a 6-month-long retail listing process. They just want it over. They want the check. They want to move on with their separate lives. This information is also public record at the courthouse. Probate, tired landlords, divorce, pre-foreclosure, tax delinquency. These are not just categories. They are human situations. The strategy is to identify the situation, find the people in that situation, and offer them a simple, elegant solution. So you've got your list. You've identified the executors, the tired landlords, the people going through a tough time. How do you reach them? Not with a flashy, glossy postcard that screams, "I'm a big company." That goes straight into the trash. You do it with a simple, personal letter. It should look like it came from a real person because it did. Use a plain white envelope. Use a real stamp, not a metered stamp. Ideally, you use a font that looks like handwriting. The message inside is critical. It must be empathetic. It's not, "Oh, want to sell your house fast for cash." It's gentle. It leads with acknowledging their situation. I know you may be dealing with a lot right now. It identifies the specific property. Regarding the house at 123 Main Street, this shows you've done your homework and aren't just spamming the entire neighborhood. And then it presents your value proposition clearly and concisely. I can buy it as is, pay cash, and close on your timeline. And with a simple call to action and your phone number. That's it. This is the machine. You build a targeted list of people with a specific problem. You send them a respectful, personal, low-pressure letter. And then you wait for the phone to ring. And it will ring. This is a numbers game. For every 100 letters you send, you might get 3, 4, maybe 5 calls. Most of those calls will go nowhere. They'll want too much money, or they'll just be kicking the tires. But one of them will be that executor who lives 3 states away. One of them will be Bob the tired landlord. And that one call is where a life-changing deal is born. The capital you need to start isn't a 20% down payment. It's a few $100s for a data subscription and a book of stamps. You are investing in marketing, not in real estate. You're spending money to find a deal so good. The money for the house itself becomes a secondary issue. Because when you find a truly motivated seller and get a property under contract for 65 cents on the dollar, a whole new world of possibilities opens up. But that leads to the 2 biggest questions everyone has at this point. First, what on earth do you say when that motivated seller actually calls you? How do you build rapport, figure out what they really want, and determine a price? And second, and most importantly, how do you make a credible all-cash offer and actually buy the house when you have little to no money in your bank account? Let's dissect those 2 questions, because they are the absolute heart of this entire strategy. Answering them is the difference between being a dreamer and being a deal maker. First, the conversation with the seller. This isn't a high-pressure sales call. Forget everything you've seen in movies. You are not a slick salesperson trying to pull a fast one. You are a problem solver. Your entire goal on that first call or that first visit to their home is to diagnose their problem. You're like a doctor for their real estate headache. So when they call you or you call them, the first thing you do is listen. Let them talk. People will tell you everything you need to know if you just give them the space to do it. Start with simple rapport building. Don't dive straight into, "How much for the house?" Talk about their day, the neighborhood, their garden. Be a human being. Your conversation should be built around uncovering 4 key pieces of information. Think of them as the 4 pillars of a deal. 1. The condition of the property. 2. Their timeline for selling. 3. Their overall situation. And for last of all, their asking price. For condition, you ask open-ended questions. So tell me a little bit about the house. Have you done any updates in the last few years? Or, are there any big-ticket items you know will need some attention soon, like the roof or the air conditioner? You're not judging, you're gathering facts. This information is crucial for later when you calculate potential repair costs. Next, timeline. This is a huge one. You ask, in a perfect world, if we could wave a magic wand, when would you like to be completely done with this property and have cash in your hand? Their answer tells you how motivated they are. Someone who says, oh, I don't know, maybe in the next 6 months or so, is not very motivated. But the person who says, yesterday, I have a job transfer and I need to be in another state in 30 days. That is pure gold. Your ability to close quickly is one of your most valuable assets. Third, and most importantly, is their situation. This is where you need to be empathetic and a good listener. You simply ask, so what's got you thinking about selling the place? And then you stay quiet. Let the silence hang in the air. They might tell you they're tired of being a landlord and dealing with tenants. Maybe they inherited the house from a parent and it's just too painful and too much work to deal with. It could be a divorce, a job loss, or they're behind on payments and facing foreclosure. Whatever it is, their reason for selling is their true motivation. The house isn't the problem. The house is in the way of solving a bigger life problem, and you are there to help them solve it. Only after you understand their condition, timeline, and situation do you gently approach the topic of price. You can say something like, okay, I have a much better picture now, thank you for sharing all that. Have you given any thought to what you'd need to get for the house in its current condition? By asking in its current condition, you're subtly reminding them that you're not a retail buyer who expects a perfect, move-in ready home. You're pricing in the necessary repairs. Whatever number they give you, your response is always neutral. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Don't flinch, don't celebrate. Just make a note of it. Now you have all the information you need to go back and run your numbers. You'll determine the after repair value, or ARV, what the house will be worth after it's all fixed up, by looking at what similar, updated houses have recently sold for in the area. Then you'll estimate the cost of repairs. Finally, you'll calculate your maximum allowable offer using a simple formula, which is typically 70% of the ARV, minus the cost of repairs. This formula ensures there's enough profit in the deal for you or your end buyer to make it worthwhile. So that's how you handle the conversation. You're a consultant, a problem solver, a helper, not a shark. But that brings us to the second $10 million question. How do you make a credible all-cash offer and actually close on the house when your bank account is looking thin? This is the secret. This is the part that separates the amateurs from the pros. First, let's redefine all-cash offer. In the world of real estate investing, all cash does not mean you are personally showing up with a briefcase full of $100 bills. It simply means your offer is not contingent on you getting a traditional, slow, painful bank loan. It means you have private funds ready to go. The seller doesn't care if the money comes from your bank account, your rich uncle's account, or a private lender's account. They just care that the check will clear on closing day. Your power, your leverage, your entire business model is built on one single piece of paper: a signed purchase and sale agreement. Once a seller agrees to your price and signs that contract, you now control the property. You don't own it yet, but you have what's called an equitable interest. You have the legal right to purchase that property at the agreed-upon price within a specific time frame. That signed contract is a tangible asset, and it's incredibly valuable. With that asset in hand, you now have two primary paths to fund the deal without using your own money: transactional funding and hard money lenders. Let's start with transactional funding. This is perfect for wholesalers. Think of it as a one-day loan. It's a specialized lender who will wire the full purchase amount to the title company for you to buy the house from the seller. This is called the A to B transaction. Then, often on the very same day, your end cash buyer, the person you're selling the house to, wires their money to the same title company to buy the house from you. This is the B to C transaction. The title company uses the money from your buyer to immediately pay back the transactional lender, plus their small fee, and then they cut you a check for the difference. That difference is your wholesale fee, your profit. You might never even touch the money. It all happens in a flurry of wire transfers managed by the title company. You essentially use the lender's money for a few hours to bridge the gap and facilitate the deal. The second and more common path, especially if you plan to fix and flip the property yourself, is using a hard money lender. These are not banks. They don't care about your tax returns from 2 years ago or your debt-to-income ratio. Hard money lenders are asset-based lenders. They lend on the value of the deal, not on your personal financial history. If you bring them a great deal, a house you have under contract for $100,000 that needs $50,000 in repairs, but will be worth $250,000 when you're done, they will get excited. They see the profit margin. They see the equity. Their loan is secured by the property itself. So, they will often fund 100% of the purchase price, and sometimes even the repair costs because they know the deal is solid. Yes, their interest rates are higher than a bank's and the loan term is short, maybe 6 to 12 months, but they are fast. They can close in a week or two, which allows you to keep your promise of a quick, all cash close to the seller. So how do you make your offer credible? You don't just write all cash on a contract and hope they believe you. You build relationships with these lenders before you even find a deal. You call transactional funders. You call local hard money lenders. You introduce yourself, explain your business model, and ask them what they need to see in a deal to fund it. Then you ask them for a proof of funds letter, often called a POF. This is a simple letter, on their letterhead, stating that you have access to a certain amount of capital to close real estate transactions. When you find a great deal and you're ready to make an offer for, say, $150,000, you ask your lender for a POF letter for that amount. You then submit that letter right alongside your purchase offer. To the seller, that proof of funds letter is as good as gold. It shows them you're a serious, professional buyer who has the financial backing to close the deal. They don't need to know the name on the account isn't yours. They just see that the funds are verified and available. Suddenly, you, with little to no money of your own, are on equal footing with any other cash buyer in the market. You've used leverage, relationships, and a solid, profitable deal to manufacture credibility. So the process is simple. Find a motivated seller and solve their problem. Get the property under contract at a deep discount. Then use that signed contract as an asset to secure funding from a transactional or hard money lender, proving your ability to close with a proof of funds letter. You're not using your money. You're using your knowledge, your hustle, and your ability to find great deals. And that ability to find great deals is the master key that unlocks every other door in real estate. But what if you find a deal so good, you don't want to just flip the contract for a quick profit? What if you want to keep it, to own it, to have that cash flow hitting your bank account month after month, year after year? You want to be the landlord, not just the middleman. But you look at your bank account, and the numbers just don't add up for a 20 or 25% down payment. This is where the game changes. This is where you stop thinking like a renter and start thinking like an owner, using a strategy so powerful it can feel like a cheat code for building wealth. It's called house hacking. Now, the term gets thrown around a lot, but the core concept is brilliantly simple. You buy a property with multiple units, a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. You live in one of the units, and you rent out the others. The magic isn't in the living arrangement. It's in the financing. Because you are living in the property, you are an owner-occupant. And for banks, an owner-occupant is a much safer bet than a pure investor. This means you unlock access to the holy grail of low-capital real estate, owner-occupant loans. Instead of needing a massive 25% down payment, you can qualify for an FHA loan with as little as 3.5% down. If you're a veteran or active duty military, you can use a VA loan and get in for 0% down. Zero. Let that sink in. On a $400,000 fourplex, the difference is staggering. A traditional investor would need to bring $100,000 to the table, plus closing costs. The house hacker using an FHA loan? They need just $14,000. Suddenly, the impossible becomes possible. But the real power of house hacking isn't just getting into the property. It's what happens after you move in. The rent from your tenants doesn't just go into your pocket. It goes directly toward your mortgage payment. In many cases, the rental income can cover the entire mortgage, plus taxes and insurance. You are effectively living for free. Your single biggest monthly expense, housing, is completely eliminated from your budget. Imagine what you could do with that extra $2,000 or $3,000 every single month. You could pay off debt, build up your savings for the next deal, or just finally breathe. Let me tell you about a guy named Mark. Mark was 25, working a good but not spectacular job in IT. He was saving, but every time he looked at the housing market in his city, He felt a sense of dread. A decent starter home was $500,000. He did the math. A 20% down payment was $100,000. Felt like a different planet. So he kept renting, paying $1,200 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, feeling like he was just lighting money on fire. Then he heard about house hacking. First, it sounded like a gimmick. Too good to be true. But he started running the numbers. He found a slightly dated but structurally sound duplex listed for $350,000. It wasn't in the trendiest neighborhood, but it was safe and clean. He got pre-approved for an FHA loan. The 3.5% down payment was $12,250. With closing costs, he'd need about $17,000 total. He looked at his savings account. He had $20,000. For the first time, he saw a path. He bought the duplex. He moved into the slightly smaller upstairs unit. It needed work. The carpet was old, the paint was a hideous shade of beige. He spent the first month of nights and weekends ripping up that carpet, laying down new vinyl plank flooring, and painting every wall a clean modern gray. He updated the light fixtures and put in new hardware on the kitchen cabinets. It cost him about $2,000 and a lot of sweat, but it transformed the space. Then he put the downstairs unit up for rent. It was a mirror image of his, but he hadn't updated it yet. He listed it for $1,300 a month. His total mortgage payment, including property taxes and insurance, was about $2,100. So, with the tenant in place, Mark's out-of-pocket cost to live in his own property was just $800 a month. He was already saving $400 a month compared to when he was renting, and now he was building equity. He was winning. But here's where the story gets really good. A year goes by. His tenant is great, always pays on time. Mark has learned how to be a landlord. He's fixed a running toilet, snaked a drain, and learned more about his furnace than he ever wanted to know. He's building confidence. The property value in the neighborhood has also gone up by about 5%. He's built equity through appreciation and by paying down his mortgage with his tenant's money. Now he repeats the process. He moves out of his unit. He does the same cosmetic renovation he did on his own place, and he rents it out for $1,450 a month because it's now the nicer of the two units. His total rental income is now $2,750 a month. His mortgage is still $2,100. He is now cash flowing $650 a month, pure profit, from a property he bought with less than $20,000. And because he no longer lives there, he's free to go buy another multifamily property using another low down payment FHA loan. Because the rule is you only have to live in the property for 1 year. In the span of 2 years, Mark went from a frustrated renter to a landlord with a growing portfolio, positive cash flow, and a rapidly increasing net worth. He didn't get a huge raise. He didn't get an inheritance. He just changed the strategy. He turned his biggest liability, his housing cost, into his #1 wealth-building asset. That is the power of house hacking. It's a launchpad. It's a real estate education and a wealth accelerant all rolled into one. You learn how to analyze deals, how to manage tenants, how to maintain a property, all with the safety net of living on site. The stakes are real, which forces you to learn fast. Now, is it always easy? Absolutely not. You are a landlord, and that means you might get a call about a broken water heater on a Saturday night. You are living next door to your tenants, which means you have to be professional and set clear boundaries. You can't just roll out of bed and blast music at 2 in the morning. And finding a good multifamily property that cash flows in a good area can be incredibly competitive. You have to be patient, persistent, and ready to act fast when you find the right deal. You also need a cash reserve. Things will break. Tenants will move out. You need a buffer to cover the mortgage during those vacancies or for that unexpected $5,000 roof repair. House hacking lowers the barrier to entry, but it doesn't eliminate risk. But if you're willing to trade a little bit of comfort and convenience for a few years, the payoff can be life-changing. You are fast-tracking your journey to financial freedom. While your friends are renting bigger, fancier apartments, you're quietly having your tenants buy you an appreciating asset. While they're worried about their rent going up next year, you're locking in your housing costs and building a cash-flowing machine. It's a fundamental shift in mindset. But what if you run the numbers and you can't even qualify for that FHA loan? What if your credit isn't there yet? Or your income is too inconsistent? What if you look at your bank account and even that 3.5% down payment feels like a mountain you can't climb? Is the dream over before it even starts? Not even close. Because that's when you have to get even more creative. That's when you learn how to control and profit from real estate without ever going to a bank at all. This is the world of creative finance. It's where deals are made not with bank approvals and credit scores, but with conversations, problem solving, and a deep understanding of human motivation. The two most powerful tools in this world are called seller financing and subject to. And mastering them is like being handed the keys to a kingdom you thought you could never afford. Let's start with the most straightforward one: seller financing. Sometimes it's called owner financing or owner will carry. It's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of you going to a big, faceless bank to get a loan, the seller of the property becomes your bank. You make a down payment directly to them, and you send your monthly mortgage payments directly to them. They hold a note, a legal IOU, and a lien on the property just like a bank would. If you stop paying, they can take the property back. Simple, right? But the first question everyone asks is why? Why on earth would a seller do this? Why wouldn't they just want all their cash up front? And the answer is the secret to unlocking these deals. You have to understand the seller's problem. You're not just buying a house. You are offering a solution. Think about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They're in their late 60s. They bought a duplex 30 years ago, and it's completely paid off. It's been a great investment, but now they're tired. They're tired of calls about leaky faucets, tired of finding new tenants, tired of the management headache. They want to sell, take their money, and move to a retirement community. So they list the property. If they sell it for, say, $300,000, they're going to get hit with a massive capital gains tax bill. All those years of appreciation get taxed in a single year. It's a huge financial sting. On top of that, they get this big lump sum of cash. What do they do with it? Put it in the stock market? That feels risky to them. A savings account? The interest is practically zero. This is where you come in. You approach them not as a buyer with a pre-approval letter, but as a problem solver. You say, "Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I love your property. I can see you've taken great care of it. I'll pay you your full asking price. But instead of you dealing with a massive tax bill, what if I give you $20,000 down, and then I pay you a monthly check for the next 20 years with interest?" You get a steady, reliable stream of income every single month, without any of the landlord headaches. It's like a private pension plan, secured by the very property you know and trust. And you get to spread your tax liability over decades instead of taking the hit all at once. Now, what did you just do? You solved their tax problem. You solved their "what do I do with the money" problem. And you solved their desire for a safe, passive income in retirement. In return, you get to buy a cash-flowing duplex with maybe only $20,000 out of pocket. The bank never even entered the conversation. You find these deals by looking for sellers who own their properties free and clear, especially older landlords. Look for listings that have been on the market for a while, or ads that say "motivated seller." You're looking for fatigue. You're looking for a problem that a big pile of cash can't solve as elegantly as a stream of payments can. That's seller financing. It's powerful, but it's just the appetizer. The main course, the strategy that truly bends the rules of real estate, is called subject to. The full name is buying a property subject to the existing financing. It sounds complicated, but the concept is shockingly simple. It means you take ownership, you get the deed to the house, but the seller's original mortgage stays in their name. You don't get a new loan. You simply take over making their monthly payments on the loan that already exists. Let me say that again. The deed transfers to your name. The house is legally yours. But the loan, the debt, remains in the seller's name. You are just ethically and contractually obligated to make their payment on time every month. Now the why question is even bigger. Why would any seller in their right mind agree to this? Sounds insane. They give you their house, but their name is still on the mortgage? It's a huge amount of trust. And you're right. This isn't a strategy for your average seller who just wants to upgrade to a bigger home. This is a strategy reserved for sellers in distress. You are, once again, a problem solver. But this time the problems are much more urgent. Imagine a homeowner. Let's call him David. David got a fantastic job offer, but it's 3 states away and he has to start in 3 weeks. He has a mortgage payment of $2,000 a month. He can't afford to pay that and rent in a new city. He needs to sell, and he needs to sell now. But he has very little equity. He bought the house just a few years ago. If he lists with a realtor, the 6% commission plus closing costs would mean he'd have to bring $10,000 to the closing table just to sell his own house. He's trapped. You come in and say, "David, I understand your situation. It's tough. Here's my offer. I will take over your mortgage payments starting next month. You can pack your bags, move to your new job, and never have to think about this house again. I'll even give you a little cash to help with moving expenses. We can close in 7 days. You just offered him a lifeline. You solved his immediate, painful problem. He gets to walk away clean. And you just acquired a property for little more than the first month's mortgage payment and closing costs. This works for so many situations. A messy divorce where the couple just wants to sever ties and can't agree on anything, except that they want the house gone. A homeowner who has fallen a few months behind on payments and is facing foreclosure. You can come in, pay the arrears to make the loan current, and take over the payments, saving their credit from the devastation of a foreclosure. They lose the house, but they avoid a financial catastrophe that would follow them for 7 years. To them, you're a hero. The absolute best time for subject to deals is when interest rates have been low for a while. Imagine acquiring a property today with a locked-in 3% interest rate from 2021. You could never get that from a bank now. You're essentially inheriting cheap money, which means your monthly payment is lower, and your cash flow is higher. Now, I know what the super astute person watching this is thinking. Wait a minute. Isn't there something called a due on sale clause? And the answer is yes. Almost every conventional mortgage has a clause that says the lender has the right to call the entire loan balance due if the property is sold or transferred. This is the big scary monster in the closet of every subject to deal. But here's the reality. It is a right, not a requirement. The bank can call the loan due, but they very rarely do for one simple reason. They are in the business of collecting interest payments. As long as the monthly payment is showing up on time every single time, why would they rock the boat? Why would they kill a perfectly performing loan, spend money on legal fees to foreclose just to, what? Get their money back so they can lend it out again? It's a business risk, yes, but a calculated one. As long as the checks don't bounce, the bank is usually happy. You are stepping in to solve a problem for a seller who is out of options. You're not a predator. You're a paramedic. You're arriving at the scene of a financial accident and providing a way out. And in the process, you gain control of an asset, a piece of real estate, for pennies on the dollar. You don't need good credit. You don't need a huge down payment. You don't need to prove your income to a bank. You just need to find the problem and be the solution. These strategies, seller financing and subject to, fundamentally change the game. They shift your focus from, how do I get money? To, how do I find people I can help? Because when you start looking for problems, you'll find that the deals are everywhere. The real estate becomes the byproduct of your solution. But acquiring the property is just the first step. How do you actually turn that control into cash in your pocket? How do you profit from these deals without ever moving in or even managing a tenant? That requires a whole different set of tools. It requires you to learn the art of the exit. The art of the exit is where the paper contract turns into actual spendable cash. It's the moment of alchemy. It separates the hobbyists from the professionals. Because controlling a property is a powerful first step. But if you don't know how to monetize that control, it's like having a winning lottery ticket you don't know how to cash. So let's talk about cashing that ticket. There are 2 primary battle-tested exit strategies that form the bedrock of this business: the assignment of contract and the double closing. Let's break them down piece by piece. First, the assignment. This is the purest, fastest, and simplest way to get paid in real estate. When you assign a contract, you are not selling the house. Let me repeat that because it's the most misunderstood concept for beginners. You are not selling the physical property. You are selling the piece of paper, the purchase agreement that gives you the right to buy that property at a specific price. You are selling your position as the buyer. Think of it like this. Imagine you find a vintage, mint-condition muscle car for sale. The little old lady who owns it just wants it out of her garage, and she agrees to sell it to you for $10,000. You sign a simple agreement with her. You now have the right to buy that car for 10 grand. But you know a collector across town who would easily pay $30,000 for that exact car. Instead of buying the car yourself, fixing it up, and then finding the collector, you just call the collector and say, "Hey, I have the exclusive right to buy this car for $10,000. For a fee, I'll transfer that right over to you." The collector agrees, and you sign an assignment agreement. He pays you a $20,000 assignment fee. He then takes your place, pays the little old lady her $10,000, and drives off in his dream car. You never had to take out a loan, you never had to get insurance, you never even had to put gas in the tank. You just found the deal, controlled it with a contract, and sold the contract itself. You were the bridge. You connected the motivated seller with the ready buyer and got paid handsomely for making the connection. That is exactly how an assignment of contract works in real estate. You find a motivated homeowner who agrees to sell you their house for, say, $100,000. You get it under contract. Then, you go to your network of cash buyers, other investors who are looking for rental properties or fix and flips, and you market the deal. You find a buyer who agrees the property is worth $120,000. You sign an assignment agreement with them, which legally transfers all your rights and obligations from the original contract over to them. They agree to pay you a $20,000 assignment fee. At the closing, the end buyer brings $120,000 to the table. The title company facilitates the transaction. $100,000 goes to the original seller as promised. $20,000 goes directly into your bank account, and the end buyer gets the house. The beauty of this is its simplicity and speed. You can often get paid in 2 to 3 weeks from when you first put the property under contract, and you do it with virtually zero risk and zero money out of your own pocket, besides maybe a small earnest money deposit which you often get back. But the assignment has one major drawback: transparency. On the final closing statement, called the HUD-1 or closing disclosure, everyone sees everything. The original seller sees that you, the person they just made a deal with, are walking away with a $20,000 check without ever buying the house. The end buyer sees exactly how much you made on the spread. Now, 99% of the time this is fine. You provided a valuable service. But occasionally, a seller might get upset, feeling like you took advantage of them, even though you're giving them the exact price they agreed to. It can sometimes sour the deal at the last minute. This is where the second, more sophisticated exit strategy comes in: the double closing. A double closing, sometimes called a simultaneous closing or a back-to-back closing, is exactly what it sounds like. It consists of two separate, independent transactions that happen sequentially. First, the seller sells the property to you. That's transaction A to B. Then, immediately after, sometimes minutes later, sometimes on the same day, you sell that same property to your end buyer. That's transaction B to C. You actually take title to the property, even if it's just for a few moments. This solves the transparency problem of the assignment. In the A to B closing, the only parties involved are you and the seller. The seller sees that they sold the house for $100,000, and that's it. They're happy. In the B to C closing, the only parties involved are you and your end buyer. The buyer sees that they bought the house for $120,000. They're happy. Nobody sees your profit margin except for you and the title company. It's a much cleaner, more professional way to conduct business, and it keeps your earnings private. But this raises the obvious multi-million-dollar question. If I'm supposed to be starting with low capital, how in the world am I supposed to buy the house in that first transaction? Where does the $100,000 come from? The answer is one of the most powerful tools in an investor's arsenal: transactional funding. Transactional funding is a very specific type of short-term loan. It's not like a mortgage from a bank that looks at your credit score, your income, and your debt-to-income ratio. Transactional lenders don't care about you. They only care about the deal. They will lend you 100% of the money you need for the A to B transaction, on the condition that you already have the B to C transaction lined up and ready to close. They are underwriting the profitability of the deal itself. Here's how it works. You get the property under contract with the seller for $100,000. You get a separate contract with your end buyer for $120,000. You take both of those contracts to a transactional funding company. They look at the numbers and see a clear $20,000 profit. They say, "Great, we'll wire the $100,000 needed for your first closing." On closing day, their money funds the A to B transaction. You officially own the property. An hour later, in the B to C closing, your end buyer's $120,000 comes in. From that money, the transactional lender is immediately paid back their $100,000, plus a small fee for their service, typically 1 to 2%. The rest, minus any closing costs, is your profit. It's a seamless flow of money that allows you to control and momentarily own a six-figure asset, using none of your own capital. So which one should you use? It depends. If you're just starting out and you have a deal with a smaller profit, say $5,000 or $10,000, an assignment is perfect. It's fast, easy, and has lower fees. But if you have a home run deal with a massive $40,000, $50,000, or $60,000 spread, a double closing is almost always the better choice. It protects your profit from scrutiny and prevents any last-minute drama with the seller. It costs a bit more in closing costs since you're paying for two transactions, but the privacy and security it provides are often well worth it. These two strategies, the assignment and the double close, are the cash registers of your real estate business. All the work you do finding motivated sellers, talking to them, negotiating, and using creative strategies to get a contract signed, all of it leads to one of these two events. This is how you generate lump sums of cash, $5, $10, $30,000 or more, in a matter of weeks, which you can then use to pay your bills, quit your job, or reinvest to buy your own rental properties for long-term wealth. But knowing the mechanics of the exit is only half the battle. You can have the most incredible deal under contract, but if you don't have someone to sell it to, it's worthless. The lifeblood of a wholesaler or creative dealmaker is not just finding sellers. It's building a robust, hungry, and responsive list of cash buyers. These are the people who will actually close on your deals and put money in your pocket. The quality of your buyers list directly determines the size of your paychecks. So we've covered how to find the deals. We've covered how to structure them creatively. And now we've covered how to exit them for a profit. We have all the pieces of the puzzle on the table. The final critical step is assembling them into a predictable, repeatable system. How do you build a machine that consistently brings you motivated sellers on one end and a line of eager cash buyers on the other? How do you scale this from one lucky deal into a true business that generates predictable income, month after month? That's the final piece of the equation. That's how you go from knowing the theory to living the reality. Building a system is the difference between a lottery ticket and an ATM. A lottery ticket is a one-time shot based on luck. An ATM is a machine you build that, with the right inputs, reliably dispenses cash. Your goal is not to be a real estate gambler. It's to be a real estate engineer. You are building a machine, and every machine has three core components: an intake, a processor, and an output. First, let's build your intake system, your lead generation machine. This is how you find motivated sellers. Relying on Zillow or the MLS is like fishing in a packed, overfished public pond. You need to find your own private, stocked lake. The first and simplest gear in this machine is driving for dollars. But we're not just talking about a casual Sunday drive. We're talking about systematizing it. You pick specific neighborhoods, maybe older ones with deferred maintenance, and you drive every single street methodically like you're mowing a lawn. You use an app like Deal Machine that lets you tap on a house, see the owner's info, and send a postcard right from your phone. You do this for 1 hour 3 times a week. Rain or shine, it becomes a non-negotiable part of your schedule. That's a system. Then you add another gear, digital prospecting. You build a dead simple one-page website. The headline is massive: sell your Houston house fast, for cash, in any condition. You run cheap, targeted Facebook ads to people in your city who have shown interest in real estate or are in certain demographic brackets. You start a small Google Ads campaign, bidding on keywords like "need to sell my house now" or "avoid foreclosure Texas." The goal isn't to spend a fortune. It's to create a small, consistent stream of inbound leads, people coming to you. You're no longer just hunting, you're farming. The third gear is direct mail. This is old school, but it works for a reason. You use a service like PropStream or ListSource to pull highly specific lists. You're not mailing everyone. You're mailing absentee owners with high equity who have owned their property for over 10 years. You're mailing people on the pre-foreclosure list. You're mailing tired landlords. And you don't send one postcard. You create a campaign of 4 to 6 mailers sent over several months. Consistency is what separates the pros from the amateurs. This entire machine, driving for dollars, digital ads, direct mail, is designed to do one thing: make your phone ring with people who need to sell. That's the intake. Next, the output system, your cash buyers list. A single cash buyer is a contact. A list of 100 cash buyers is a business asset. It's your distribution network. Finding a deal without a buyer is like manufacturing a product with no stores to sell it in. So, how do you build this list systematically? You start by going to every local real estate investor association, or REIA meeting. Your mission isn't to learn, it's to connect. Your goal is to leave each meeting with 5 business cards from active flippers and landlords. You go home, you add them to a spreadsheet with notes. John buys 3 halves S in the suburbs. Max price $250K. Then you become a detective. You use public records or services like PropStream to find every property in your target zip codes that was bought with cash in the last 6 months. You see the buyer's name. It's usually an LLC. You look up that LLC, find the owner, and you call them. You say, "Hi, my name is your name, and I'm a local wholesaler. I see you're actively buying properties in the area. I come across discounted, off-market deals all the time. What are your buying criteria?" You are building a direct line to the money. Finally, you run ads for buyers just like you do for sellers. You post on Craigslist under real estate for sale. The ad says, handyman special, deeply discounted fixer-upper, cash buyers only. When they call, you tell them that one is gone, but you get new deals every week, and you'd be happy to add them to your exclusive VIP buyers list. Every person who calls gets added to your database. Before you know it, you have a list of 20, 50, 100 people who are ready and waiting to buy. When you get a property under contract, you're not scrambling to find a buyer. You're sending one email and creating a bidding war. Now for the final component, the most important one, the processor. This is your transaction system. This is what connects the seller leads to the cash buyers and makes you money. It's about creating a repeatable assembly line process for every deal. Starts with your analysis. You create a simple deal calculator in a spreadsheet. Every time a lead comes in, you plug in the numbers in the exact same order. Address, beds/baths, square footage. You run comps to find the after repair value or ARV. You have a standardized list of repair costs. Kitchen remodel, $15K. Roof replacement, $10K. New paint and flooring, $8K. You plug it all in, and it spits out your maximum allowable offer, your MAO. This removes emotion. It removes guesswork. The numbers either work or they don't. The next part of your processor is your team. Scaling is a team sport. The first person on your team is an investor-friendly title company or closing attorney. This is non-negotiable. You need a closer who understands assignments of contract and double closings and won't be spooked by them. You find them by calling title companies and asking one simple question. Do you handle assignments of contract for real estate wholesalers? If they hesitate, hang up and call the next one. Your second team member is a reliable contractor who can walk a property with you, or for you, and give you a quick, accurate repair estimate within 24 hours. This is crucial for making confident offers. And as you grow, you bring on a virtual assistant or VA for maybe $5 an hour. They can take over the repetitive tasks. Managing your website, pulling your lists, sending your mailers, and even answering the initial calls from sellers to pre-screen them. This frees you up to focus on the two things that actually make you money: negotiating with sellers and building relationships with buyers. This is the ultimate shift. You go from being a hustler chasing one deal at a time to being a business owner and architect of systems. Every single task you do, you should be asking yourself, how can I document this? How can I create a checklist for this? How can I eventually outsource this? You are not just building a job for yourself. You are building a machine that can run without you. We've covered an immense amount of ground. We started with nothing but an idea, and we've walked through the mindset, the creative financing strategies like seller finance and subject to, the tactical business models like wholesaling and wholetailing, and now, finally, how to build the systems that turn this from a hobby into a predictable, scalable enterprise. The path is laid out. The strategies are real. People are using them every single day in every city across this country to change their financial futures. But all the knowledge in the world, all the YouTube videos, all the books, are worthless without one final critical ingredient: action. The information is the map, but you have to get in the car and drive. The gap between where you are now and where you want to be is bridged by a series of small, consistent, and courageous actions. So my challenge to you is this: what is the one action you will take in the next 24 hours? Not next week, not tomorrow, today. Will you go online and find the time and location of your local real estate investor meeting? Will you download a Driving for Dollars app and spend just 30 minutes after work driving one neighborhood? Will you draft the copy for your first simple We Buy Houses website? Pick one thing, just one, and do it, because that first step is the hardest. It's the one that breaks the inertia of doubt and procrastination. It's the one that proves to yourself that you are serious. You have the blueprint. You have the strategies. You have everything you need to start building a life of financial freedom through real estate, even with little to no money of your own. The only question left is, will you? The time for learning is over. The time for building begins now.